welcome to Holistically Speaking. I'm your host, Marella DeVoe. Our mission with Holistically Speaking is to be the avenue through which the voices of holistic health reach you at the time you need it most. And today, my guest is Sarah Bartlett, who is a poet, a writer, a facilitator, and she is the director for Women Writing for a Change, right?
That's correct.
In Vermont. Welcome, Sarah. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Marella. It's a pleasure.
I'm really excited to have you on the show because I think what you do is powerfully healing, and we're going to get into that. I've experienced your work. I've been in one of your workshops, and I really wanted to share this with the community because I don't think that a lot of people have even potentially thought about writing and what writing can do. So welcome, and I know you wanted to start off with a poem, so we're all ears.
Well, thank you. In all of my workshops, retreats, everything that I do, I always open with a poem. And there's a poem by Dana Goya that is entitled Words, which really, I think, speaks to why we write. So I thought I would take just two stanzas from it to start. The world does not need words. It articulates itself in sunlight, leaves, and shadows. The stones on the path are no less real for lying uncatalogued and uncounted. Yet, the stones remain less real to those who cannot name them or read the mute syllables graven in silica. To see a red stone is less than seeing it as jasper, metamorphic quartz, cousin to the flint the Kiowa carved as arrowheads. To name is to know and remember. Isn't that lovely?
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
That's one of those poems I wish I had written.
Yeah. And to name is to know and remember. And so let's jump right in. You know, how would you articulate that naming something and knowing and remembering, how can writing help someone facilitate healing?
Well, I think that there is huge power in naming. It sounds kind of self-evident to me because I guess I say that a lot, but it's like when you make a commitment, you make it out loud, and it's more real than if you just kind of think it to yourself, you know, in the privacy of your home. That's kind of what naming is. And naming in community has even more power. When you sit in a circle, you see the person across the circle looking at you and listening to you, and your words are, in a sense, they're being heard at the same time they're being spoken.
Right.
And so by speaking, you're naming what you need to name. You're also giving courage to the woman across the circle to name what she needs to name.
Right.
And so there's a healing and a growing opportunity for everyone. It's like being put in a pot and gazubulating together into a stew, you know?
Yeah.
One of the principles that we use in our work in women writing is what we call deep listening. And it's really a matter of hearing one another into speech, which is what Nellie Morton wrote. And I love that as a sort of tagline for how healing naming can be.
Hearing one another into speech. There's a beauty in, I feel like, in being heard when you speak your truth, or you write something and then you read it. The receiving, having that being received, being held, can be beautiful. If I could share also something that I found is my personal experience, and I often recommend it to my clients in processing what they're working, what they're feeling, is that writing can also slow down thinking, right?
Absolutely.
Slow down thinking and feeling.
Absolutely.
So what are your thoughts on that? How?
Well, that helps you to capture a moment in time. It's interesting you mentioned that, because I find when I write that I prefer to write by hand. When I write on the computer, it's just a different beast. Partly because I used to be a pianist, so I type really fast. So often my fingers almost get ahead of me. But I find that there's something about the physical translation of thought through the body onto the page. And slowing down the moment is a part of that. I think Anais Nin said that we write to experience something twice.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. We
And,
write to experience something twice.
you know, and there is something, certainly in our practices, we're very much about slowing down, about becoming more conscious about how we interact, how we approach things, and in how we respond, so
Yeah.
that the listening itself is slower.
Right.
So much in our culture is very
Very
knee-jerk
fast.
reaction,
Yeah.
and we even don't use the word reaction, we use the word respond.
Right.
It's very different.
Yeah, and so in the process of writing, the person then has an opportunity to listen more deeply, to just, I almost think that we're so fast in thinking and feeling that we're not even aware of what's going on, but when you write, or when you answer a question and you write, it really can take you so much deeper, right?
And there's something interesting that happens in a circle. The practices that we use in a group, we also use in board meetings and problem solving with, in corporate consulting situations. And it's really interesting if you think about a typical problem solving group. When you go in, everyone has their opinion and they talk all at once and they talk all over each other, and immediately people get defensive and they want to protect their territory. Right. But if you take that circle and before anyone even speaks, you give everybody a piece of paper and you ask them to write down what's on their mind, what they most care about, perhaps let's say the outcome of that meeting, what they most care about. And then you have each person read that around the circle and everyone else listens. And the rule is you don't comment.
Right.
There's no judgment, there's no, you just hear it. The amazing thing is how almost just in that process alone, you find where your consensus lies.
Right.
And you have no debate. I don't mean you don't have debate. You have no defensiveness. You have none of that sort of extra energy that flies around.
Yeah.
The other thing that happens, and I think about pointing because I have the book here from the prison writing that came out last fall. The reason we titled it Hear Me, See Me is because one of the first things the women said to us was that they wanted to be known for the woman behind the rap sheet.
Yeah.
And when we did our first reading inside, they asked us to invite the governor and the commissioner and the legislators. They said they wanted to be heard. They wanted people to know. And for many of them, the first time in their lives that they've been listened to is when they've sat around our table.
So I was going to ask you about that later, but since you brought it up.
Well, you said hear me.
So you co-edited this book with Mary Beth Christie Redmond. And so this is Women in Prison Writing. And so I'm assuming this is a compilation of what they wrote. So what did they write about?
Well, if I could just back up before I say what they wrote about, is that for 4 years now we've been doing a weekly writing circle in the women's prison in Vermont. It started out when they were up at Northwest in St. Albans, and now they're down in Chittenden in South Burlington. And so after writing with them every week for 4 years, over about 200-something women have come through the program. That's a lot of writing.
Yes.
This represents writing from about 60 different women. Not everything by any means that they wrote, but selected writings. And the topics that we write about, and they range, I will say that about 80% of the women are mothers, so a lot of the writing is about their kids and about how they miss them.
Yeah.
And in fact, I could perhaps share one writing.
I just opened the book to a poem or a stanza, Jaws of Regret. That without even looking at it sounds very powerful. But please go ahead to read
the one about the daughter. She called it Lost in the Dark. A mother lost in the dark, trying so hard to grow, and yet holding on to her child. A child trying so hard to reach for the light of hope and faith, to understand. It goes on from there. I don't need to read the whole thing, but the point is that each week we come in with a theme, and it might be a seasonal theme. We might write about faith, we might write about trust, we might write about fear. Always we start with a poem, and the poem is selected to sort of suggest the theme, and then we give a writing prompt, and then we share the writing.
So I'm interested, obviously the writing is a process, right?
It is.
And you have the evidence, the actual manifestation, the product that they've created. And I'm interested, what do you see or what do they express in terms of what the writing leads them to. Do they talk to you about that?
They do. They write about it too.
Okay.
Got to pull out another one. This is a woman that has written with us, or wrote with us from the beginning, and she's now out. But her writing about the group, she called it My Canvas, My Song. She says, I feel freed from reality, free to let my thoughts and imagination flow here on these pages, free to express myself at will and whim. Whimsical and carefree, my pen glides smoothly along, bringing out of my soul all that lives there in the depths, the laughter, the love, the heartache, the pain, reality and fantasy. Letters and words fall into their places as easy as the stars twinkle in space, forming on the page to see a story that is all about me. This is my canvas. This is my song. The words are my freedom. There's no right or wrong. Here, in this world of words, I feel I belong.
That is really beautiful, and what it makes me think of, or what it's eliciting in me, is that the writing and the gathering to write with the group, it's a part of connecting them to their humanity, their being a full human being with creativity and feelings and a life, even if they are in prison.
Well, especially since they're in prison, this is the one place that they have a chance to really be who they are, because we have no judgment. Everyone is equal in the circle. We listen and write along with them. We share our stories. There's always two of us, a facilitator and an assistant. And we've built a huge level of trust with them.
Yeah.
We go in every week. We do everything the same each week. We do what we say we're going to do. We show up when we say we're going to show up. And that's really huge. So it's a place for healing.
Yeah, that's really wonderful work that you're doing. And so how did you get into that? Is that part of Women Writing for a Change, or was it your own initiative?
Well, it's sort of both. Women Writing for a Change is a national organization that started in 1991 in Cincinnati, Ohio. I've been part of it since '93, so I'm almost a founding member.
Yeah.
And then in 2004, became the first, was one of the first class of licensees to open my own program here in Vermont. So I am 10 years old. I was just mentioning earlier that March 4th, 2004 was my first group. So this is kind of an anniversary event for me, which is fun. And I forgot what the question was.
So how you got into the prison writing?
In the prison writing. In fact, in the first several years when I was still living in Cincinnati, they were doing a program inside. They call it Inside Outside, ISIS, and went in with a writer, a visual artist, and a theater person. And they would do 6-week sessions, sometimes in the most secure settings. I liked the idea of going in, but I've never liked the idea of a group existing just for the performance. I know that's very popular, camps do it, workshops do it, but so I always had it in my mind that I wanted to do that. Fast forward to my program here, I got established first working with adults, then I added a girls program. Mary Beth came to one of my workshops, and she was working on a book about a man that she and her husband had followed through his time in prison. It was a very compelling book, and I got very involved in working with her on it. And at some point, after that workshop, actually, the idea was growing in me, and I asked her, would this be a good time? And she, unknown to me at that point, had been carrying a similar seed.
Right.
So together we planted the seed, and it's been really incredible how it's taken off.
So it's an ongoing program.
It's an ongoing program. The book was an accident. I just want to say we did not do it to create the book. The book came from the fact that we have a blog and an editor, a publisher of, actually from Orbis Books, who's published this, who knew Mary Beth, who she used to work with.
Okay.
Was reading the blog and asked us to do the book because he said he thought it would be an amazing project. So that's how it happened. But we're still in there. And at the launch last October, people would say, well, what are you going to do now that the book is out? And I said, well, the book was a blip.
Yeah,
I mean,
we're continuing to
we
do
absolutely are. But I do want to say that the reading was an amazing experience. We talked at the beginning about being heard and being seen.
Right.
We ran that reading the way we run all of our groups and all of our inside readings. So that means that everyone read and there was silence until everyone was done, and then we invited people to read lines back that they had heard from the writing. And then after all of that, we did allow people to applaud. But before we broke and went to the reception and the book signing, I invited people to write on a little card what is stirring in you after hearing this. So we had about 275 people at that launch. I got back 140 cards.
Wow.
Now, I think that's amazing because you figure these people were coming to a reading. They did not know what they were getting into.
Right.
But the comments on those cards, Marilla, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you for this opportunity to hear from a group I would never hear from. This has opened my eyes. I'm going to think about my life differently. These women have more courage than I'll ever have. I mean, just amazing comments that told me that, you know, we all need to be heard and seen, but it's our shared humanity that we lose sight of.
And you have another reading coming up, right?
We do, at Middlebury. It's so exciting. The Women's Studies Department at Middlebury College just jumped right on it. So on April 5th.
And it's open to the public in
Absolutely, absolutely, before in the afternoon. I think we have a note about
yeah,
that
we'll have
coming.
that for our viewers later so they can check that out.
And can I just say, I'm feeling really uncomfortable that we're sitting here with this gorgeous bear and we haven't even said why she's here or who she is.
So why did you bring the bear?
This is Full Circle Bear. She has a beautiful logo here, and she is visiting my writing studio this week. She went to an art group on Monday night, and she sat with my writing group last night and wrote, and there are pictures of her up on the Full Circle Facebook page. And she's been doing the rounds. And there are also small bears that are showing up in businesses around town. They're little turquoise ones.
Yeah.
They've been given to us by Vermont Teddy Bear Factory, and they're advertising Full Circle Festival, which is going to happen the weekend of April 11, 12, and 13.
I was just going to ask, so what is Full Circle?
It is a celebration of the art and heart of aging, and it's going to have a lot of intergenerational activities. Camilla Rockwell, who's a local filmmaker, is the brainchild behind it, and she has pulled together an amazing program.
Yeah.
3 days full of everything you can think of.
So how does your work in Women Writing for a Change fit into that? How are you participating in?
Well, I'm the Facebook manager, I guess because I write.
Yeah.
But I'm doing a workshop on Saturday called Living Reinvention. Very aware of how we cycle through our lives and how we reinvent ourselves periodically, not necessarily decade by decade, but certainly every decade has a different set of expectations for us.
Right.
And I'm participating. Naomi Shihab Nye is a absolutely wonderful poet who's going to be coming Friday night, and I'm participating in that whole planning. So I've gotten pretty involved.
So Full Circle, I don't know much about it. I've seen some things. Is it mostly targeting people like in retirement? Is it? Tell me.
Well, it's interesting. It's really, yes, it's celebrating the heart and art of aging. So it's geared toward a certain age, and certainly a number of the sponsors are, AARP, for example, is a sponsor. But it's elements of financial planning, health, exercise, nutrition. There are going to be dance performances. They're going to be interactive. There's going to be a cooking demonstration by King Arthur. There's going to be things for young and old to do together. I can't even begin to. I mean, it's a huge roster of events. Just go on FullCircle.com and FullCircleFestival.com.
Perfect.
But the bear is just helping us to bring awareness to the event.
To the event.
Yeah, and I think they're doing a good job.
It was very sweet to watch you come in with the bear. So I really want to get to Women Writing for a Change before we run out of time. And
let's not do that.
Because I know that the programs that you offer really create a beautiful space for people to come and experiment with writing. Maybe try writing for the first time ever. So tell us about the work that you do with Women Writing for a Change. How do you structure it? What would people expect to find if they were to contact you?
Well, I do two core classes, a morning and an evening class that go sort of across a semester. This time around I'm doing it every other week for 10 sessions, so that basically is an academic semester. And I also have a poetry workshop, a summer writing retreat, and then various collaborative workshops in which I either work with other people or bring in other modalities. What one might expect is the studio is a very, I would say, sacred space. People walk in during Art Hop, for example, when people come, even when young kids come in, they're like, wow. You know, they kind of look around, they just feel the vibe of the space. So what you can expect is that it will be quiet, it will be very grounding, it will be very evocative. You'll feel remarkably at home, even sitting among strangers. You will be, after your initial nervousness, you'll find that you're not concerned about sharing deep feelings with people you've never met before, because we're all doing that. And we have a lot of practices in place to make it safe and confidential.
So a quick question, because you mentioned these being classes that run like semesters. So is it, you know, I would assume somebody watching would say, okay, so is it creative writing? Is it poetry? Is it fiction writing? Is it what kind of writing?
Whatever writing anyone wants to do, whether or not they've ever written before. Obviously it's women. I have women who are in retirement, empty nesting, new to town, recently divorced, just recovering from illness, everything from 20-something to 80-something. It's the gamut. And I think what makes it really different is that it's also about building a community. Just as the work inside, we build a community of trust, as well as encouraging the use of writing for voice and to have a voice and to use that voice. That's really what we're about. So it's very different from any other writing workshop where you go to hone a skill or learn how to do something. On the other hand, I offer a lot of resources. So if you're writing poetry and someone else is writing fiction, I'll give you the resources that you need. The magic that happens is when you come together in a small group, which we do each week as part of our group experience, a group of 3 or 4, and that's where you bring the writing you've been working on and you get feedback from one another. That's the real beauty of the program, because it's real ears hearing your writing, not somebody trying to make it be a certain way.
And you also do workshops around specific topics, right? So tell us about that.
Well, one of my favorites is that every October I do a workshop for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I say that I do it on behalf of Women Helping Battered Women because that's how I got into it. But I would love to read, if I could, a poem from that.
Of course.
So one of the things that I do after every week, every group, is that I create what we call a found poem. And that's composed of the individual lines that we've heard from everybody around the table, and then I shape it into a poem. Do I have time to do this?
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So this was from actually this past fall, and it was called Emergence. So these are lines from maybe a dozen different women, but they could have been written by one. Grief and shame have been stalking me, their shape a way of lying to myself. I discard things, including my breath. I need more meaning than just a title or role. You think you were the damaged one? Me too. I remember what it feels like to be devalued, a cold wind I protected myself against. My cognition, such a trusted friend, rushing like sand in an hourglass, remnants of frenzied afterthoughts. Why can't I speak to get what I need? Words are not the only thing that come or go. I remember surprise at all the sadness, indelible belief, the grammar of distrust, the negative space of my desperation. Invalid, unimportant, wrong. I want to honor how hard this is for me, a journey to the roots of my silence, shaped into something I can hold, the whole truth spaced between words, generous, welcome, valuable. It goes on. It ends with become who you are, appreciate, enjoy the patterned roots, energy flow, movement. Here, hands on paper, I let go.
That's powerful.
So you can see that there was a lot of healing that happened just in that 2-hour period of time.
And so I want to be sure to show our viewers some of the workshops that you have coming up.
Absolutely.
And some of the resources, also how to contact you and all of that. So if we could show Sarah's resources. So this is the book, Hear Me, See Me, Incarcerated Women Write, co-edited by you and Mary Beth Christie Redman. And there's going to be a reading, as you were mentioning, at Middlebury College, April 5th at 4 p.m.
That's correct.
And information on how to get the book and attending the reading would be available on your website, right?
Yes, the information about the book is on the prison website, which I believe is coming up.
Which we'll show
That's correct.
in a moment. So some of your upcoming events are also Living Reinvention. It's a writing workshop. Can you tell us just briefly about what that's about?
That's the one I mentioned. That's Full Circle Festival, right?
At the Full Circle Festival.
Right.
Okay, and then this one speaks for itself, obviously, ER Nurses Workshop. And it's Wednesday evenings starting on April 16th. And that runs how long?
That will be 6 sessions. That's an example of a collaboration. I was approached by someone who wanted that to be offered.
And then Woman at Point Zero. It's a book discussion, and you have a guest.
Yes, she's from Jordan. She's the visiting Fulbright scholar at Champlain College. The book is actually written by an Egyptian woman, but we're very fortunate that Rula, who is an Arab feminist, who's here now, knows the book and has done this with a couple of other book groups. So we're opening our book group to guests that night.
And this is a book about Muslim women and their perspectives on.
You could call it that, yeah.
And then you have an annual writing retreat.
I do.
And that's in July.
That's correct. That's from a Thursday night to a Sunday afternoon, and that's something I do every year. And that information is also on my website.
And your websites, the Women Writing for a Change website is womenwritingvermont.com, and that's where all of your different writing workshops, all of the information is on there. Then the Prison Writing Program, and that's the blog, I would assume, right?
That is correct, and there are a lot of resources there. We also have a Facebook page where we post a lot of related material.
writinginsidevermont.com. And then you're an author as well, so I guess that's some samples of your writing at sarahwbartlett.com.
Yeah, and a blog also.
And it's a blog. And then the Full Circle Festival website, that's where people can find out all sorts of information about the different workshops and
get tickets.
And get tickets.
And volunteer. We need lots of volunteers.
Excellent. So we have about another minute, and you said you had another brief poem that you wanted to read.
I wonder if I could end with, this is a found poem from the women inside, Ocean of Mercy. It is me, your daughter. I am here, come to terms with shadows that trail my heels, wayward soldiers unbending in their demands, my eternal shame chamber that shuts the door. Lessons of introspection torn from the celestial womb, embedded in all things beating. Cleanse my soul, empower me to rise from the bondage of my addiction. In gratitude for what's in store, I wholeheartedly release the smooth marble of all that existed. Your grace has given me mercy. I have become divine. I exist, not stranded out at sea, but linked into the collective. The world opens its arms again, shimmering, flowing an ocean of mercy, a new life by your star-swept hand.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining me. And I hope that you, our viewers, had a chance to see how writing might help you. I'll see you next time.